Zara Velthis walked through the long white halls of Kepler Station with her scanning device in hand. She had done this same walk every day for the past 20 years. Her blue skin reflected the soft lights above as she moved toward her laboratory. At 847 years old, she was considered young by her people, but she felt ancient inside her heart. The Phylorians were a proud species known across the galaxy for their advanced science and long lives. They lived on average for 2,000 years, but their greatest challenge was having children. Thylorian reproduction required something called bioneural bonding. Two Thylorians had to have perfectly matching brain patterns to create new life together. Without this match, no child could be born. Zara worked as a fertility specialist, helping other species solve their reproduction problems. She had helped hundreds of alien couples have babies. The irony was not lost on her that she who helped others become parents could never become one herself. She had been tested with over 3,000 potential Thylorian males. Not one had shown even basic compatibility with her unique neural patterns. Her laboratory was filled with strange machines that hummed and beeped softly. Charts covered the walls showing brain patterns from dozens of different alien species. Zara had made it her life work to understand how different beings created new life. She found it fascinating that some species like the Zephyrians could reproduce with any member of their kind, while others, like her own people, needed perfect genetic harmony. That morning felt different, though she could not explain why. Her assistant, Kella, bounced into the lab with unusual excitement. Kella was young even by Thylorian standards, at only 150 years old. Her enthusiasm sometimes annoyed Zara, but today it seemed welcome. Commander Lisa Park from Earth had arrived the night before with her delegation. This was the first time humans had visited this part of space. Nobody knew much about human biology or culture. The station administrator had asked Zara to serve as their science consultant since she knew more about alien reproduction than anyone else on the station. Humans were supposedly strange creatures who lived very short lives but made up for it with incredible curiosity and adaptability. They came from a planet called Earth in what they called the Sol System. Their ship had traveled for months to reach Kepler Station, using some kind of faster-than-light technology that most species thought was too dangerous to attempt. Zara read the basic files about human biology, but the information was limited. They seemed to reproduce through simple genetic combination without any special bonding requirements. Males and females could apparently create offspring with almost any member of their species as long as they were healthy. It seemed too easy compared to what Zara had to endure. The meeting was scheduled for midday in Conference Room 7. Zara arrived early and set up her bioscanner and data tablets. She wanted to learn everything she could about these unusual visitors. The room had large windows showing the stars beyond the station. Trade ships moved slowly between the docking ports, like metal fish swimming through space. Commander Park entered first, followed by 3 other humans. The commander was a tall woman with dark hair and sharp eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Behind her came a man with light brown hair who carried himself like a scientist. His name tag read Jake Morrison and listed his job as xenobiologist. The other 2 were security officers who stood quietly near the door. Jake Morrison interested Zara immediately. As a xenobiologist, he would be studying alien life forms, just as she studied alien reproduction. When their eyes met across the room, she felt something unusual happen. Her bioscanner, which she always wore on her wrist, began to emit a soft blue light. This had never happened before during any meeting. The device was designed to detect bioneural compatibility between Thylorians. It should not react to any other species, since they did not have the right kind of brain patterns. Yet as Jake moved closer to shake her hand, the scanner's light grew brighter. When their hands touched, the device almost seemed to sing with electronic Harmony. Zara quickly pulled her hand away and checked the scanner readings. The display showed compatibility numbers she had never seen before. Not just basic compatibility, but deep harmonic resonance that indicated perfect biological matching. This was impossible. Humans did not have bioneural patterns. The scanner must be malfunctioning. During the meeting, Commander Park explained that humans wanted to establish trade relationships and learn about other species. Jake asked detailed questions about Tellurian science and seemed particularly interested in their reproduction methods. Every time he spoke, Zara felt her scanner warm against her wrist. She tried to ignore it and focus on answering questions. Professionally, Jake explained that humans reproduce through emotional bonding rather than biological matching. They fell in love first and then had children together. Love was apparently a feeling that made humans want to share their lives and create families. This concept seemed alien to Zara since Tellurian partnerships were based purely on genetic compatibility testing. After the meeting ended, Zara hurried back to her laboratory. She ran full diagnostics on her bioscanner, but found no problems with the device. All systems were working perfectly. She reviewed the readings from her encounter with Jake Morrison and found them even more puzzling. Upon closer examination, the compatibility scores were not just high, they were off the charts. Her scanner had detected neural patterns in the human that somehow complemented her own bioneural frequency in ways that should have been impossible. No alien species had ever shown even basic compatibility with Tellurian patterns. Yet this human male had generated readings that suggested perfect reproductive harmony. Zara sat in her chair staring at the data long after the station's artificial day cycle had ended. Outside her window, the stars continued their eternal dance, while inside her mind questions multiplied faster than she could answer them. Could the scanner really be detecting something genuine? Or was this simply an equipment error caused by unfamiliar human biology? She thought about Jake Morrison and the way he had looked at her during their conversation. There had been genuine curiosity in his eyes and something else she could not identify. Humans apparently used emotional connections for reproduction, but Zara had no idea what emotions felt like. Tellurians made decisions based on logic and scientific analysis, not mysterious feelings. That night, Zara could not enter her normal sleep cycle. She kept thinking about the impossible readings and wondering what they might mean. For 800 years she had accepted that she would never have children. Her neural patterns were too unique to match with any Tellurian male. Yet somehow, a human from across the galaxy had walked into her laboratory and made her. The AO scanner light up like a star going nova. Sleep finally came, but her dreams were filled with images of Jake Morrison and questions about human emotions she did not understand. 3 weeks after the humans arrived at Kepler Station, Zara still could not stop thinking about the strange scanner readings. She had run the diagnostic tests dozens of times, but the equipment continued to work perfectly. Every time Jake Morrison came near her laboratory, the bioscanner reacted the same way with bright blue lights and impossible compatibility scores. Jake had visited her lab several times to ask questions about Tellurian biology for his research. Each visit made Zara more confused about what was happening. The humans seemed genuinely interested in learning how different species reproduced and adapted to survive. His questions were intelligent and showed deep scientific curiosity that reminded Zara of herself when she was younger. During one visit, Jake brought a human female scientist named Elena Rodriguez, who specialized in reproduction medicine on Earth. Elena was fascinated by Zara's work and asked if she could study Tellurian bioneural bonding methods. The three scientists spent hours discussing the differences between human and Tellurian reproduction, while Zara's scanner continued to glow softly whenever Jake was present. Elena noticed the scanner's behavior and asked about it. Zara tried to explained that the device was designed to measure compatibility between Thylaurians, but recently it had been malfunctioning around humans. She did not mention the specific readings she had recorded because they seemed too impossible to believe. Afternoon, Dr. Rodriguez made a suggestion that changed everything. She proposed a joint research mission to study reproduction methods across different species. The human government was planning to send a science vessel called the Harmony on a long-range exploration mission. They needed alien scientists to help them understand the biology of species they might encounter during their journey. Commander Park approved the proposal and offered Zara a position as the lead xenobiologist on the expedition. Jake would serve as her human counterpart, studying alien genetics, while Elena would document their findings for the medical community back on Earth. The mission would last 6 months and visit several different star systems where they could study reproduction in natural environments. Zara accepted the position partly because it offered amazing research opportunities, but mostly because she wanted to understand what was happening with her bioscanner. Being on the same ship with Jake for months would give her time to study the phenomenon and hopefully find a scientific explanation for the impossible readings. The Harmony was smaller than Kepler Station, but much more advanced. Human technology impressed Zara with its efficiency and clever design. The ship's laboratories were equipped with instruments from dozens of different worlds, allowing scientists to study almost any form of life they might discover. Captain Ben Turner welcomed the alien scientists aboard and gave them a tour of the vessel. The captain was an older human with gray hair and kind eyes who had spent most of his life exploring space. He seemed excited about the research mission and promised to help the science team in any way possible. Zara was assigned quarters near the main laboratory section. Her room was simple but comfortable, with a bed designed for humanoid species and a workstation connected to the ship's computer systems. Jake's quarters were just down the hall from hers, which made her scanner react even when he was sleeping. The first few days aboard the Harmony were spent calibrating equipment and reviewing mission plans. Zara worked closely with Jake and Elena to design experiments they could conduct at each stop on their journey. She found herself enjoying the collaboration more than she had expected. Humans had a different approach to science that emphasized creativity and intuition. Alongside logical analysis, Jake seemed particularly interested in Thylaurian bioneural patterns and asked detailed questions about how the bonding process worked. Zara explained that Thylaurians could only reproduce when their brainwaves synchronized in perfect harmony. The process required deep neural connection that went beyond simple physical attraction or even friendship. Elena suggested they study Zara's own bioneural patterns to better understand the mechanism. She pointed out that having a baseline reading from an actual Thylaurian would help them interpret data from other species they encountered. Zara agreed, though she was nervous about what the tests might reveal. The medical bay on the Harmony had scanners much more advanced than anything on Kepler Station. When Elena activated the bioneural detection systems, Zara's readings appeared on screens throughout the room. Her patterns were indeed unique, with frequency combinations that Elena had never seen before in any species. Jake watched the displays with fascination and asked if he could volunteer for comparative testing. He wanted to see how human neural patterns looked compared to Thylaurian ones. Elena connected him to the same scanners that had just analyzed Zara's brainwaves. What happened next shocked everyone in the room. Instead of showing completely different patterns, Jake's neural activity began to synchronize with the residual readings from Zara's scan. His human brain was somehow adapting to match frequency patterns that should have been biologically impossible for his species to generate. Elena ran the test 3 more times with the same results. Jake's neural patterns were not identical to Zara's, but they were complementary in ways that suggested deep compatibility. The scanners indicated that if Jake were a Thylaurian, he would be a perfect reproductive match for Zara. Rodriguez called Nketh Mordoon a ship's other alien scientist who specialized in genetics. Keth was an elderly Thylorian male who had studied bioneural bonding for over 1,000 years. When he saw the test results, his blue skin turned pale with shock. Keth explained that what they were seeing should not be possible. Humans did not have bioneural capabilities, and no alien species had ever shown compatibility with Thylorian reproductive patterns. Yet the evidence was clear on every scanner and monitor in the medical bay. Jake asked what this meant for him. Personally, he had been experiencing strange dreams and unusual emotional responses since meeting Zara, but had assumed they were just effects of being in space for the first time. Now he wondered if something biological was happening to his brain. Elena suggested they continue monitoring both Zara and Jake throughout the mission to see if the neural synchronization remained stable. She also wanted to test whether other humans might show similar adaptability to alien bioneural patterns. If this was a general human trait, it could revolutionize understanding of cross-species relationships. Zara felt overwhelmed by the implications of what they had discovered. For 800 years she had believed she would never find a compatible mate among her own people. Now a human from another galaxy was showing perfect biological harmony with her neural patterns. She did not understand how this was possible. But the scientific evidence was undeniable. That night, Zara lay in her bed listening to the soft humming of the ship's engines while her mind raced with questions. Jake was sleeping just meters away down the hall, and she could feel her bioscanner responding to his presence even through the walls between them. Whatever was happening, it was growing stronger rather than weaker over time. She thought about the human concept of emotional bonding that Jake had described. Humans apparently fell in love first, and then their bodies adapted to create new life together. Could it be that Jake's neural patterns were changing because of some kind of emotional connection he was developing with her? Zara had never experienced emotions the way humans described them, but lately she had been feeling something new when Jake was around. A warmth in her chest and a desire to spend more time learning about his thoughts and ideas. She wondered if this might be what humans called attraction or even the beginning of love. The thought both excited and terrified her. If humans could develop bioneural compatibility through emotional bonding, it would change everything Thylorians believed about reproduction and relationships. It might even mean that she could finally become the mother she had always dreamed of being. The Harmony arrived at Velthara after 2 months of travel through deep space. Zara felt nervous about returning to her homeworld with such unusual research findings. The Thylorian government had always been conservative about reproduction and would not welcome news that humans might be compatible with their species. Velthara was a beautiful planet with purple oceans and silver cities that gleamed under twin suns. Zara had been born in the capital city of Morhelith, where the most advanced medical facilities in Thylorian space were located. These facilities would be needed to properly study what was happening between her and Jake. During their journey, the bioneural connection between Zara and Jake had grown stronger. Daily tests showed their neural patterns becoming more synchronized, while Jake reported increasingly vivid dreams about Thylorian culture and biology. He was somehow absorbing knowledge about her people that he had never studied. Dr. Elena Rodriguez documented everything with careful scientific precision. She had never seen anything like the neural adaptation they were witnessing. Jake's human brain was literally rewiring itself to match Thylorian bioneural frequencies. The process seemed to be driven by emotional attachment rather than conscious effort. Jake had admitted to Zara that he was developing feelings for her that went beyond scientific curiosity. He found himself thinking about her constantly and wanting to understand not just her species, but her as an individual. When she explained Thylorian culture to him, he absorbed the information with an intensity that surprised them both. Zara was experiencing changes too, though she did not fully understand them. She had begun to feel what she thought might be emotions, similar to what Jake described. When he was away from the ship on research missions, she felt empty and incomplete. When he returned, she experienced something humans called happiness. The Thylorean authorities granted them permission to use the medical complex at Morhelith for their research. High geneticist Nara Silanth agreed to oversee their work, though. She made it clear she was skeptical about their findings. Cross-species reproduction had never occurred in recorded Thylorean history, and she doubted it was possible. Dr. Amy Foster joined their team when they reached Vel Thara. She was a human psychologist who specialized in studying relationships between different species. Amy had come to understand how emotional bonding might affect biology and wanted to document the psychological changes happening to both Zara and Jake. The medical complex was enormous, with laboratories that contained technology far more advanced than anything on the Harmony. Zara felt at home among the familiar instruments, but also nervous about what they might discover. If the tests confirmed bioneural compatibility between her and Han, Jake, it would shake the foundations of Thylorean society. High geneticist Nara insisted on running her own tests before accepting any of the human research. She attached Zara to scanners that mapped every neural pathway in her brain, while recording the bioelectrical patterns that made reproduction possible. The readings confirmed what they already knew about Zara's unique neural signature. When Jake was connected to the same scanners, something remarkable happened. His neural patterns immediately began shifting to complement Zara's frequencies. Within minutes, the scanners showed perfect bioneural harmony between them. Nara stared at the displays in shocked silence before running the test 2 more times. With identical results, Amy Foster observed the emotional responses of both subjects during testing. She noted that Zara and Jake both showed elevated stress when separated, but returned to normal levels when they were in the same room. Their heart rates and brain chemistry synchronized in ways that suggested deep psychological bonding. The breakthrough came when Nara suggested testing actual reproductive compatibility using artificial bioneural simulation. This was normally done before Thylorean couples attempted to have children together. The process involved connecting both partners to machines that mimicked the neural patterns required for successful reproduction. Jake volunteered for the test, despite warnings that it could be dangerous for a human nervous system. He trusted Zara and Elena to monitor his safety, while the Thylorean equipment attempted to establish full bioneural bonding between them. Zara felt terrified about what might happen, but also hopeful that they might finally understand what was occurring. The simulation began slowly with gentle neural pulses designed to encourage synchronization. Jake's readings showed immediate adaptation as his brain responded to the Thylorean frequencies. Within an hour, the scanners indicated complete bioneural harmony that would allow successful reproduction between them. Nara could no longer deny the evidence before her. A human male was demonstrating perfect reproductive compatibility with a Thylorean female, despite having completely different biology. She immediately called an emergency meeting with the Thylorean Council of Geneticists to discuss the implications. While waiting for the council to convene, Zara and Jake spent time exploring Morhelith together. Jake was fascinated by Thylorean architecture and culture, while Zara enjoyed showing him the places where she had grown up. She found herself seeing her home world through his eyes and appreciating things she had previously taken for granted. Jake told her about Earth and human families with parents who loved their children not because of genetic compatibility, but because of emotional bonds. He described how human couples chose each other based on feelings and shared dreams rather than scientific testing. The concept seemed wonderful but alien to Zara, who had never experienced such freedom in relationships. They visited the ancient reproduction temples where Thylorean couples had been bonding for thousands of years. Jake was amazed by the beautiful crystal formations that helped amplify bioneural patterns during the bonding ceremony. Zara explained that she had never expected to see these temples as anything more than historical sites, since she had no prospect of marriage. That evening, they sat together watching Velthara's twin suns set over the purple ocean. Jake took Zara's hand and told her that he loved her, not because scanners said they were compatible, but because she made him want to be a better person. He said that humans called this feeling love, and it was what made them want to share their lives with someone special. Zara felt something warm spreading through her chest as Jake spoke. She realized this must be what humans called emotional bonding, and it felt more powerful than any bioneural connection she had ever imagined. For the first time in her long life, she understood why humans based their relationships on feelings rather than science. The council meeting the next day was tense with older Thylaurians expressing concern about the implications of cross-species reproduction. Some worried that allowing humans to bond with Thylaurians would somehow weaken their genetic purity. Others feared that their carefully controlled reproduction system would collapse if emotions became more important than compatibility. Testing. High geneticist Nara presented the evidence with scientific precision. She showed brain scans, neural pattern analyses, and biocompatibility readings that proved Jake and Zara could successfully reproduce together. She also presented Amy Foster's psychological research, showing that emotional bonding seemed to trigger the neural adaptation in humans. A young Thylaurian named Zeth volunteered to participate in further testing. He had been unable to find a compatible partner among his own people, and was curious about whether he might bond with a human female. Alana Rodriguez agreed to find human volunteers for the experiment when they returned to human space. The council voted to allow continued research, but insisted on strict monitoring and safety protocols. They wanted to understand exactly how human neural adaptation worked before allowing any actual cross-species reproduction attempts. Zara felt disappointed by their caution, but understood their concerns about unknown risks. As their time on Velthara came to an end, Zara realized that everything in her life had changed. She was no longer the lonely scientist who believed she could never have children. Jake had shown her that love might be more powerful than biology, and that families could be created through emotional bonds, rather than just genetic compatibility. Return journey to human space would give them time to plan their future together while continuing their research. Zara still did not fully understand human emotions, but she was eager to learn more about love and what it might mean for her dreams of motherhood. 6 months after their return from Velthara, Jake and Zara were living together at Luna Base near Seer, Earth. The joint research facility had been built specifically to study cross-species relationships and reproduction. Scientists from dozens of different worlds worked together in laboratories that hummed with activity day and night. The news that had shocked everyone was about Zeth, the young Thylaurian, who had volunteered for testing. He had successfully bonded with a human female named Dr. Karen Walsh, and she was now carrying the first documented cross-species hybrid pregnancy. The galaxy watched with fascination and concern as medical teams monitored every stage of her pregnancy. President Maria Santos of Earth's Unified Government had called emergency sessions with alien ambassadors to discuss the implications. Some species worried that humans might try to reproduce with all of them, while others were curious about whether they too might be compatible with human biology. Thylaurian Ambassador Kyle and spent most of his time answering questions from his government about human intentions and capabilities. The Thylaurian Council was divided between those who saw this as an opportunity for their species to overcome reproduction problems, and those who viewed it as a threat to their genetic purity. Dr. Richard Stone led an ethics committee that met daily to discuss the moral implications of cross-species reproduction. They debated questions about the rights of hybrid children and whether it was safe to allow such experiments to continue. Some members argued that mixing species DNA could create unknown health problems for future generations. Zara worked closely with human and Thalorian doctors to monitor Karen's pregnancy. The hybrid embryo was developing normally, but required constant medical supervision. Karen's human biology was adapting to support Thalorian neural patterns. While the baby showed signs of having capabilities from both species, Jake had become an expert on human neural adaptation and was training other scientists to recognize the signs of cross-species bonding. He discovered that not all humans could develop bioneural compatibility, but those who did showed similar emotional responses to what he had experienced with Zara. The process seemed to require genuine, emotional attachment rather than just physical proximity. Humans who were forced into contact with Thalorians for political or economic reasons showed no neural adaptation. Only those who developed real feelings of love or deep friendship could trigger the biological changes needed for reproduction. Zara was experiencing her own biological changes as her body prepared for possible pregnancy. Her bioneural patterns had stabilized in harmony with Jake's, and medical scans showed that her reproductive system was ready to support a hybrid embryo. The doctors assured her that the process would be safe based on what they had learned from Karen's pregnancy. Jake proposed to Zara using both human and Thalorian customs. He gave her a ring made from crystals from both their home worlds, while also presenting her with bioneural compatibility certificates that proved their scientific bond. Zara accepted with joy that she was still learning to understand and express. Engagement ceremony was attended by scientists and diplomats from across the galaxy. Commander Lisa Park gave a speech about how their relationship represented hope for understanding between different peoples. Captain Ben Turner from the Harmony said that love had proven more powerful than the barriers between species. 3 weeks before, Karen was due to give birth. Complications arose that terrified everyone involved in the project. Her body began rejecting the hybrid embryo as her immune system failed to recognize the mixed DNA as safe. Human and Thalorian doctors worked around the clock to find solutions while the baby's vital signs grew weaker. Zeth proved crucial to saving both Karen and their unborn child. His continued presence at her bedside seemed to stabilize her bioneural patterns and calm her immune response. The doctors realized that emotional bonding with the Thalorian father was necessary throughout pregnancy, not just during conception. Jake and Zara spent hours at the medical facility, supporting Karen and Zeth through the crisis. Zara used her expertise in bioneural medicine to adjust the monitoring equipment, while Jake provided emotional support to the frightened couple. They understood better than anyone what Karen and Zeth were experiencing. The breakthrough came when Dr. Elena Rodriguez suggested that Karen needed constant bioneural contact with her Thalorian partner. She proposed keeping Zeth connected to Karen through neural monitoring devices that would allow his brain patterns to support hers throughout the remainder of pregnancy. The experimental treatment worked, and Karen's condition stabilized within days. Her body stopped rejecting the hybrid embryo and began supporting its development normally. The baby's bioneural patterns showed healthy development of both human and Thalorian characteristics. Zara realized that if she and Jake decided to have children together, they would face similar challenges. The pregnancy would require Jake to maintain constant bioneural contact with her, which might be difficult for his human nervous system to sustain for months. She worried about the risks to both Jake and their potential child. Dr. Amy Foster continued studying the psychological aspects of cross-species relationships and made important discoveries about human emotional capacity. She found that humans who successfully bonded with Thalorians showed enhanced empathy and ability to understand alien thought patterns. Love was literally expanding human consciousness. Jake experienced these changes himself as his understanding of Thylaurian culture and science deepened through his bond with Zara. He could now recognize Thylaurian emotional states and even predict Zara's thoughts and needs before she expressed them. Their minds were becoming connected in ways that went beyond simple compatibility. The successful birth of Karen and Zeph's daughter sent celebration throughout the research facility. The baby was healthy and showed remarkable abilities, including enhanced pattern recognition from her Thylaurian heritage and strong emotional intelligence from her human side. She seemed to understand both species naturally. President Santos announced that Earth would establish permanent cross-species family support programs. Luna Base would be expanded to accommodate more mixed couples and their children. The government committed resources to ensure that hybrid families would have the medical and social support they needed to thrive. Zara felt ready to begin her own journey toward motherhood. Watching Karen successfully give birth had shown her that the risks were manageable with proper medical care and emotional support. More importantly, she had learned that love really could overcome biological barriers that seemed impossible. Jake agreed to start the pregnancy process despite warnings from doctors about the strain on his nervous system. He told Zara that becoming a father with her was worth any risk and that humans were designed to adapt to new challenges. His confidence gave Zara courage to move forward with their plans. The conception process required several weeks of intensive bio-neural synchronization between Jake and Zara. They spent hours each day connected to monitoring equipment that helped align their brain patterns for successful reproduction. The experience brought them closer together than Zara had ever imagined possible. When the pregnancy test showed positive results, Zara felt emotions she had never experienced before. Joy and fear mixed together, while hope filled her heart in ways that seemed to expand her very soul. Jake cried with happiness, which taught Zara that tears could express positive feelings as well as sadness. The medical team immediately began monitoring both Zara and Jake to ensure the pregnancy proceeded safely. They had learned from Karen's experience that constant bio-neural support would be essential throughout the entire pregnancy. Jake would need to maintain emotional and biological connection with Zara for the next several months. As they prepared for the challenges ahead, Zara marveled at how much her life had changed. She had begun as a lonely scientist who believed she could never be a mother. Now she was carrying a child created through love that transcended the boundaries between species. Her dreams of motherhood were finally becoming reality. 5 years had passed since Lily Morrison Belfise was born, and the galaxy was a different place. The little girl with her mother's blue skin and her father's warm brown eyes had become a symbol of unity between species. She could speak 3 languages fluently and seemed to understand the emotions of every alien she met. Zara watched her daughter playing in the gardens of Haven Colony with children from 6 different species. Lily laughed as she chased a young Zephyrian boy while helping a shy crystalline child learn to walk on 2 legs instead of floating. Her ability to connect with others amazed everyone who met her. Haven had been established as the first multi-species colony where mixed families could live together safely. Governor Sam Chun worked with representatives from dozens of worlds to create laws and customs that supported cross-species relationships. What had started as a research project had become a thriving community of thousands. Jake worked as an ambassador traveling between different worlds to help establish similar communities. His understanding of alien psychology had grown beyond what any human had achieved before. Other species trusted him because they could sense his genuine emotional connections to beings unlike himself. The cross-species family institute that Zara had founded now helped hundreds of couples navigate the challenges of interspecies relationships. She had trained doctors and counselors from many different worlds to recognize the signs of successful bonding and support families through pregnancy and child rearing. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had become the leading expert on hybrid biology and published research that helped other species understand how emotional bonding could trigger biological adaptation. Her work showed that love really was a universal force that could bridge differences between any two beings willing to open their hearts. Lily ran up to Zara with a flower she had picked from the memorial garden. The garden honored the scientists and diplomats who had worked to make cross-species families possible. At its center stood a statue of Jake and Zara, holding hands with words inscribed beneath that read, "Love conquers all barriers." Zara knelt down to accept the flower from her daughter and marveled at how much the child had taught her about emotions. Through Lily, she had learned that love was not just bonding between partners, but a force that could expand to include children, friends, and even strangers who needed help. Maya Patel arrived with news that made Zara's heart sing with pride. The Galactic Council had voted to officially recognize cross-species families and grant them full legal rights throughout known space. Children like Lily would be able to travel anywhere and be accepted as citizens of both their parents' worlds. Vote had not been easy, with some species still opposing what they called genetic contamination. However, the success of Haven Colony and dozens of similar communities had proven that mixed families were stable, productive, and beneficial to galactic society. Fear was slowly being replaced by understanding. Jake returned from his latest diplomatic mission with stories about new cross-species couples forming on distant worlds. The human ability to bond emotionally with other beings was inspiring scientists to study whether their own species might have similar adaptability. Love was spreading throughout the galaxy, like light from a new star. That evening, the family sat together, watching Haven's 3 moons rise over the horizon, while Lily told them about her day at school. She had helped 2 children from different species become friends by showing them how to play a game that worked for both their kinds of bodies. Her natural diplomacy skills amazed her parents. Zara reflected on how her life had changed from that first day when Jake Morrison walked into her laboratory on Kepler Station. She had been certain she would never have children because no Thylaurian male was compatible with her unique bioneural patterns. Now she was not only a mother, but a pioneer who had helped create a new kind of family. The Cross-Species Family Institute received requests for help every day from couples across the galaxy. Zara had trained teams to work with humans and Thylaurians, but also discovered that other species combinations were possible. Love seemed to be the key that unlocked biological compatibility between many different kinds of beings. Lily asked if she could have a brother or sister, and both Zara and Jake smiled at the question. They had been discussing a second child, and the doctors assured them that subsequent pregnancies would be easier now that their bioneural bonding was fully established. The first child had required extensive medical support, but their bodies had learned to work together naturally. Dr. Amy Foster published a book about the psychological changes that occurred in cross-species relationships. She documented how beings from different worlds developed enhanced empathy, understanding, and communication skills when they formed emotional bonds. Mixed couples often became natural ambassadors between their species. The success of cross-species families had surprised everyone, including the scientists who first discovered that Jake and Zara were compatible. What began as an impossible biological phenomenon had become a social movement that was reshaping relationships throughout the galaxy. Young people from many worlds now came to Haven Colony to study at the Interspecies University, where they learned about different cultures and biology. Many formed friendships that led to romantic relationships and eventually to families that combined the best traits of multiple species. Zara established scholarship programs to help students who wanted to study cross-species biology and psychology. She believed that understanding between different peoples would only grow stronger if young beings learned about each other while their minds were still open to new ideas. The memorial garden where Lily had picked her flower also contained stones, honoring the children who had been born to mixed couples. There were now over 2,000 hybrid children living throughout the galaxy, with more being born every month. Each child represented hope for a future where differences between species would become strengths rather than barriers. Jake often told the story of their first meeting to young couples who came seeking advice about cross-species relationships. He emphasized that love had to be genuine and that emotional bonding could not be forced or faked. The biological adaptation only occurred when beings truly cared about each other. As the years passed, Zara had learned to express emotions as naturally as she processed scientific data. Love had taught her that feelings were not weaknesses, but powerful forces that could motivate beings to achieve impossible things. Her love for Jake had made her bio-neural patterns compatible with his. Her love for Lily had made her a better mother than she had ever imagined possible. The Galactic Council announced plans for the first interspecies cultural festival, where families from different worlds would gather to celebrate their diversity and unity. Haven Colony would host the event, and Zara felt honored that their community had been chosen to represent the success of cross-species cooperation. That night, as she tucked Lily into bed, Zara told her daughter about the early days when people thought it was impossible for different species to have children together. Lily listened with wide eyes and then asked why anyone would think love was impossible. From her perspective, love between different kinds of beings was the most natural thing in the galaxy. Zara kissed her daughter goodnight and marveled at how much wisdom the child possessed despite her young age. Lily had been born into a world where cross-species families were becoming normal, and she could not imagine it being any other way. Her generation would grow up seeing diversity as beautiful rather than threatening. Standing at the window watching the stars above Haven Colony, Zara felt grateful for the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had discovered that she could be a mother not through Thylorian bio-neural compatibility, but through the human gift of emotional bonding. Love had indeed conquered all barriers and created possibilities that no one had dared to imagine.